Hi there, I'm Lyn Peters, Director of Communications, Financial Education, and Outreach for the Washington State Department of Financial Institutions. We're going to talk a little bit today about budgeting and the importance of it and what it is and how you can do it and why it can make a huge difference in your life. I will start with a disclaimer. The comments and opinions expressed today are mine and mine alone. They do not necessarily reflect those of my agency or anyone associated with my agency, and I cannot give legal or financial advice. We don't endorse or recommend any person, product, or institution. So who we are and what we do. We are a small state agency. I like to say small but mighty. We're about 200 people. We license, regulate the financial services industry. So if it's a bank or a credit union or a payday lender, mortgage broker, loan originator, financial planner, advisor, we'd probably license and regulate them. We don't license and regulate the big banks like the Banks of America and Wells Fargo. Those are federally regulated, but a lot of the others we do license and regulate. We are actually licensing and regulating some cryptocurrency as well. We protect consumers by making sure that the financial services industry is operating safely and soundly and within legal parameters. And we also provide education to help consumers understand there are laws and rules and regulations that protect them and to understand how to watch out for scams and schemes. Our website, dfi.wa.gov, is a great resource for information. The number one thing I tell people, they're usually going to either file a complaint, verify a license of a licensee like a financial planner or a mortgage broker, or they're going to look at the consumer alerts to see what's happening out there. These are all things that we have. We also list enforcement actions. So if there's somebody who has done something illegal, we take action against them. We post that information online so consumers can find out who they are, what they did, and how that impacted consumers. And it's a great thing to go look at if you are looking at doing business with somebody, just to make sure that we haven't taken action against them in the past. So you have a heads up on what's going on. We issue things like statements of charges, cease and desist orders. Those are the big ones where we say you don't get to do this anymore. We issue fines, denial or revocation of license. That's usually a big thing. Recovering costs. We try to do that as often as possible. In some cases, especially in investment scams, it's very difficult. It's almost impossible. What we do is we sell off whatever they purchased with that money, usually for pennies on the dollar in an auction. So you're not getting all your money back. So we want people to know about all of these things that are out there online, know who these actors are, and not become victims. That's the best form of protection, is to not become a victim in the first place. There comes education. If you have more education information, I'm a former reporter, so I firmly believe that information is knowledge, knowledge is power, and the power belongs in the hand of the people, i.e. you. So I want to make sure that you have the information and education that you need to make sound financial decisions, because we work hard for our money, and it's really difficult when we lose our money, especially in a financial fraud, identity theft, some sort of scheme or scam. It's heartbreaking. We're embarrassed about it. But my goal is to make sure that you don't become a victim. And if you do become a victim, that you report it and take action. That's where the scams and fraud information comes up. These are a list of different types of scams and frauds that are out there. We list this on our website. The Attorney General's office has a great consumer protection website as well. We have a whole bunch of information online about budgeting. So a lot of the stuff I talk about today is going to be on our website under money topics, under the B's for budgeting. So budgeting is important for a number of reasons. We see in the news that 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. It's a very common thing, especially coming out of the pandemic. It's really important to understand where your money is going, and is there something else you could be doing with it? What we say about budgeting, there's a difference between expense tracking and budgeting. You need to track your expenses to understand how to budget, right? Income, you want to know what's coming in, what's going out. That's expense tracking. Budgeting is having a goal and having a plan of what to do with that money and making sure that you're adhering to that plan. We say put it in writing because research tells us when you see it in writing, it becomes real. It becomes a real thing and not just this amorphous thing in the universe. When you see it in writing, you can develop a plan. When you have a plan, you can track progress. And when you see the progress, it helps you set goals and reach them. I tell people celebrate your successes. So a budget really is just a plan. It's having a plan for how to spend your money. Define it with a SMART goal. You want to make sure that it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Think about paying for college. If your kids are little, you know you have 18 years before you need to pay for school. Or 16 years before you got to buy a car. If you're looking at buying a house, if you're getting ready to do that, you need to start making a plan. This is something that I did. I will start by prefacing by saying I was the poster child for what not to do until I started working at DFI when I learned all of this stuff at age 40. So I'm hoping that I'm helping you get ahead and starting this earlier than 40, but I'm also living proof that you can literally do everything wrong and fix it. The only bad thing that I never did was file for bankruptcy. I did all the other things, but I came back from it. I paid off debt. I paid off my car. I literally paid off my student loans. My friend calls me her unicorn. I'm the only one she knows who's done it. And I saved money to put a down payment on a house. We bought a house. And we actually refinanced it last year so we could do some improvement. So like I said, literally done everything wrong, proof that you can fix it and come back on the other side and live a happy, healthy life. Assessing the damage is the first thing. We didn't have a budget in our household until my husband was laid off after working at the same place for 35 years. So we said, we need to find out what we have coming in, what's going out and where it's going out, and figure out how to reallocate that. I put it in an Excel spreadsheet because A, I'm a little financially dyslexic, numbers and I get mixed up, it's never pretty. And B, because it was easy to sort, right? So if I entered all of my receipt information, I kept all my receipts for a month, which was kind of crazy. You don't realize how much money you spend when you're going out and about and doing things in your day-to-day life. But I kept all my receipts, put them all in an Excel spreadsheet, checked that against my debit card and my credit cards to make sure I had all of them in there, and then sorted it by where the money was going and realized we were spending money like stupid people, not thinking this through. We spent a lot of money on entertainment with friends, and we realized we could spend probably a quarter of that money instead of all of it if we brought our own. Well, we were smoking cigars at the time. We went out with friends. We were at a cigar bar, so we were buying expensive cigars and we were having cocktails there. So we switched to buying our own cigars and having soda when we got there. That saved us enough money, that and some other items that we cut back. We cut cable. Well, I lived in Lakewood, so we were able to cut garbage and then just take it to the dump once a month. There were little things that we did. It meant that when my husband went back to school, he didn't have to go to work. So he was able to focus on going to school. Now he took out student loans and we're paying those off now, but he didn't have to do both. He didn't have to work and take out student loans. So again, proof that if you ID all your expenses, see where your money is going and make a better plan for it, you can reallocate that money into a better plan. So defining your goal. For us, the first one was getting my husband through school without having to go to work. What will it take to get there? We had to find out what we were spending and how and why, and what that difference was between what we were going to have coming in after he lost his job and what we were going to have coming in afterwards. We celebrate our victories and successes. When I paid off my car, it was like, woohoo, there's $400 a month I don't have to pay anymore. But we turned around and put that money into savings. So we were building an account that was going to give us another success later, which was the goal of being able to buy a house. And we made that. It was 8 years in the making, but we did it, and very much worth it. We were lucky enough to buy at the end of the market in 2012. So we got a house for $160,000 that today is worth $500,000, which only counts if you're ever going to sell your house or refi, or when you're paying property taxes, which is a whole other thing I'm learning about. So spending and saving, there's a standard 50-30-20 rule for having a budget. You need to allocate most of it to your living expenses, your mortgage, your utilities, your groceries, your transportation. Your lifestyle expenses are the wants, right? So the needs are the living expenses. The lifestyle expenses, your cable, your expensive cell phone plan, your going to a movie or I guess streaming services kind of replace that for everybody now, but how many streaming services do you have? And do you really need that many streaming services? And then allocating money to savings. And there's a couple of great books. One is called Automatic Millionaire, and there's another one they focus on pay yourself first. Make sure that you're setting that money aside. If you can do it directly out of your checking account as a direct deposit from your payroll, you never see it. And if you don't see it, you don't think about it until you start to see your savings account grow. And also with retirement, same thing with retirement. Make sure that you're putting some money into retirement. So even if it's only like 10% into savings, 10% into retirement, it's better than nothing, right? You may not be meeting that 20%. I don't know a whole lot of people who can do the 20% with everything, especially not these days. There are budgeting apps that are out there. The most commonly known one is Mint. They connect to your bank account. A lot of financial institutions have their own versions of this now, where you can set up a budgeting tool. You can tell this app, I want to put this much towards my mortgage, rent, transportation, groceries, utilities, this much towards savings, and this much towards my fund money. And it will send you a notice if you go over in those accounts. Had a very interesting dinner out on the road with my coworker, and he got a text message in the middle of dinner, and he got this real sheepish look on his face. And I was like, what's that all about? He says, well, apparently that's my last glass of wine because I just got a text message that I'm over my fund budget. So these are things that can be very helpful because it's really easy to spend more money than you think. Especially if you're using a credit card or a debit card. Cash, you tend to be, it's harder to let that go sometimes, but it's really easy to overspend. These can be very helpful for people. This is where I kind of feel like an 80-year-old some days. I'm not quite able to give access to my bank accounts to a third-party app, but knock on wood, they have not had any breaches that I've read about. And the people I know who use them are very, very happy with them. So these are things to consider. Cash budget is how I started. This is the envelope method. A lot of folks talk about it. I know that Dave Ramsey is one of the folks who talks about this. If you work in the world of cash, this is a great way to start. You have envelopes with the name of what it's for and the amount you need to keep in there, and you put that cash in there. When you find yourself pulling money out of one to put into another, like taking money out of your grocery envelope to put into your fund budget, it's a very tangible, very visible way of knowing I'm spending money I shouldn't be spending because this is my grocery money and I really don't need to go see that movie this weekend. So this was something that helped me in my start, but it's something that was difficult now because not a lot of us deal with cash. There's even places today because of the pandemic that literally don't take cash. So the written budget, I apologize for the blurriness of this. This is an old photo, and it's a very old budget. You can see from rent at only $800 a month. That was for a 2-bedroom house in Lakewood back in the day. I laid out my paydays, and I still do this to this day. Here's all the things that need to be paid per payday in the blue, because I say writing it in blue makes you remember it longer. Writing it makes you remember it longer. So I write things out. So I knew what my bills were due. I knew how much it was. And then in green, so that I had that little bit of contrast, I would note when I paid the bills, how I paid the bills. For the credit cards, you can see it was like, this is what the balance was. This is how much the minimum payment was. And this is when I paid it. And then I tracked other things at the bottom, like I took out cash for something, or I noticed that there was a balance on, or I wrote a check on something. So I was tracking things. Writing worked well for me, except for the fact that, like I said, I'm kind of number dyslexic. So I switched to Excel. Now I do both because I like that physical writing stuff out, but I am dyslexic with numbers. So I put things in an Excel spreadsheet. And I kept my SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So knowing what my balance was, here you can see B of A balance of $3,614.56. I knew if I paid $500 a month, I would have it paid off by December. This is really handy when you do a balance transfer with that 0% interest rate. So you know when you've got to pay it off. And I would put that information down at the bottom of my spreadsheet so I knew when my deadline was. So even if I needed to spend some of that money on another bill at one point, I knew I still needed to pay that off by this point. Otherwise, I would pay all of that interest. That's the thing about balance transfers you need to remember. These are very handy as a way of saving money and budgeting it for other allocation, as long as you stay on top of it. What I tell people is money is like diet and exercise. You need to use what works for you. If you don't, you're not going to stick with it and it's not going to work for you. My husband and I did P90X. We did it through the 90 days. It did not last. I do not have big muscles. I gained all the weight back and then some. What I had to do was find what worked for me. What I found it works for me is I like hiking, and I minimize my food in the mornings or the afternoons so that I have a little more leeway in the evenings when my husband goes, hey, let's go to dinner. That I'm not freaking out about how many calories are in that dinner. Same with money. What works for me is I pay all my bills every payday. And then I know, and I have an automatic setup for savings, automatic setup for retirement, and whatever's left over, that's what's left over. That's what I get to spend. And I use my credit card for everything for the safety and security features, but the goal is to pay them off. So I have all but one are completely paid off. I use them for emergencies. And the one that I use every day, I get money back on it. I make sure that if I use a credit card, I get something out of it. Whether you do cash back for groceries or gas or points for airfare, make sure you're getting something back when you use a credit card, because it is their money, it is their system, it is their game. It is up to us to learn how to work their game and use that game kind of against them, but it's a win-win, right? We get to use money that we technically don't have, but we're also getting something out of it. Remember the 3 R's. So reality, if you make $20,000 a year, you can't spend like you make $80,000 a year, which means you have to be practicing some restraint and be responsible. The thing that always stuck in my head was my mom. That's the God-given truth, right? Our mom were right. They were all right. And she always said, pay your rent first. You can go without electricity, you can go without water, you can go without travel, but you cannot go without a place to live. So always pay your rent first. That's stuck in my head. That's that piece of responsibility. So that is always the first bill that gets paid out of my paycheck. Look for leaks. This used to be my leak, and I used to have a very complicated coffee order that everybody here made fun of me. My father-in-law, smartest investor I know, invested in Starbucks in the early 90s. Yes, he's a millionaire. Loves to take me through Starbucks and go, just order your coffee. I can't wait to hear this. And if you order it in other states, seriously, they look at you like, what? You're not from here, are you? No, I'm from Seattle. We're good. So this was my leak. And when I started balancing this up, it terrified me. I was like, how am I spending this much money on coffee? But then I was like, you know what? It makes me happy. So I made it part of my budget. When it became part of my budget, it was no longer a leak, but it was a part of my spending. But then my priorities changed. So I got dogs. I love my 2 dogs. They are the equivalent of my children. They are my fur babies. And it was more important to me. I have jerks for dogs. They don't get along with other people. They don't get along with other dogs. So my dog store, where I spend sadly, a majority of my money, told me about this place called Sniff Spot, where you can rent somebody's yard or property that's fully fenced. So your dogs, who may not get along with anybody else, can go play by themselves in this great big wonderful backyard that's all new to them. And because other dogs have been there, they also get to check their pee mail, right? So it's just like going for a walk somewhere else where they get to go smell all the smells. This was a good swap for me. And I'm still spending $78 less or $18 less a year than I was on my coffee. Ooh, coffee, happy dogs. Coffee, happy dogs. It was not a tough decision for me. I like happy dogs, and it also gets me outside. That was part of my other goal with my diet and exercise. So it works. Every penny you save counts. And this is where, so I'm going to go ahead and play this. Mr. Earl, I love this story. People think I'm crazy about this story. Mr. Earl. Okay, can you see the Mr. Earl video pop up? Okay. I did not see if I needed to check a special thing to have audio. We're going to test it real quick and see if you guys can hear this.
Actually, we can only still see the slide. You might need to
Oh,
change
okay.
the screen that you're sharing.
Okay, so let me do a new share. Okay, now can you see it? Okay, let's see if you can hear it. Nope. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing and I'll reshare. There it is. Share sound, optimize video clip. There's always a catch, right? Okay, try this. We'll start it over.
Not long ago, I met Earl Crawley.
Hey, how you doing?
But everyone here calls him Mr. Earl.
We can talk about some finances.
He's
Hang on.
worked as an attendant at this
I can't see
parking
you
lot
anymore.
in Baltimore for 44 years.
So you really think it's going to improve the gas?
Funny thing though, everyone was asking Mr. Earl about money.
Nickel and dime, nickel and dime.
That's right.
Is. He makes my day every time I see him.
Oh, come on now, seriously. Investing?
How you like that gold now?
670.
Earl told me he's never made more than $12 an hour, never earned more than $20,000 a year.
How you doing?
So how could he know something about corporate profits?
Spider's gonna get
I had to pry.
So Earl, what's your net worth?
$500,000.
$500,000
Yeah,
from working here.
working here.
That's amazing.
My last statement.
And there it is in his statements, over $500,000 net worth on a parking lot wage. Now Mr. Earl had my full attention. How did he do it?
Stop working so hard and let the money work for you.
Earl's first lesson came at age 13. His mother had him working the fruit stalls to help pay the family bills. He got to keep just a few quarters for himself.
From the time my mother started taking my money that I earned in Lexington Market, that it wasn't money just to be thrown away. It was there to be used.
Economics aside, Earl had another obstacle to overcome.
Tebow is
He tells me he's dyslexic. Back in the 50s, that meant settling for a life of low-wage manual labor jobs. So Earl figured he'd better sock away what little money he was making. It was just $1 here and $1 there, starting with savings stamps, and that led to savings bonds. At 26, he got married, and by the late 60s, Earl was feeding 3 children on a meager $80 a week.
It was tough, but because we had to sacrifice a lot.
And the budget only got tighter when Earl and Beverly opted to send their kids to Catholic school instead of public school, which was free. Earl took extra jobs to pay the tuition, and you better believe he made every penny count.
Elementary school, I would ask for lunch money, and he would give me $1. Lunch was 85 cents, and he would reply before I walked out the door, "I want my change."
As the years rolled by, Earl kept saving what seemed like meaningless amounts. He started investing $25 each month into a mutual fund and did that consistently for 15 years. By the late 70s, his net worth was $25,000.
Later, as the children got older, he decided to play the stock market, and he bought one share, and well, the rest is history.
He bought stock in blue chips like IBM and Coca-Cola that paid dividends, and
instead of taking the dividends and parking it, let it set or let it reinvest itself, and it increased my shares. And the more shares I had, the more dividend I had. Eventually, the more money I have down the road.
so where did this so-called slow learner learn so much about mutual funds and blue chips and dividend reinvestment plans?
You're going to split this year.
It all comes back to that parking lot. And this is my favorite part of Earl's story. You see, his lot is smack dab in the middle of a financial district where he picked the brains of brokers and bankers and lawyers for their financial advice.
What's going on? You got any advice for me today in the markets?
No, I'm just trying to find out something from you.
Oh, all right.
Talk to everybody and listen to advice that everybody give me and take it from there.
Earl, why don't we take a look at what you've got in the portfolio now?
Earl had trouble reading, so instead, he listened. He believed in the power of compound interest and stocks for the long haul. Which brings us back to the present. Today, Earl's stock portfolio alone is worth more than $500,000. And yes, his house is paid for. And no, he doesn't carry any credit card debt.
He's somebody to emulate not only as an investor, but as an individual, and how to live your life and make the best of what the Lord gave you.
Now, Earl is paying it forward.
Here comes Brenda.
He's gifting shares from his portfolio to people like Brenda Thomas, who never dreamed they could have enough money to invest.
And that was Coca-Cola. Because you told me to reinvest my dividend.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop that there. But I love that story because it shows that truly every penny counts. I'm going to stop the share and go back to the other share. I remember I had this problem before. And this counts towards budgeting because he originally started with the change jar to go buy those savings stamps. And that's kind of an amazing thing. And then little by little, every penny counts. Every bit that you're setting aside, every bit that you're budgeting for other things is so important. Emergency savings is something we hear a lot about, we talk a lot about, but a lot of us don't do as much as we should. And of course, the pandemic really taught us how important this is. They tell us we should have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in a savings account. And I had never, ever had that before until we refinanced our house. I'd had like maybe a month, maybe 2, but never 3 to 6. And understanding the importance of that really made me a lot more cognizant of I need to have this emergency savings set aside. So we are starting to rebuild. My husband just got a new job. So we're starting to rebuild our savings account, our emergency accounts, and make sure that we have that. Even 3 to 6 might not have helped a lot of folks this year because we know, the pandemic actually eliminated several jobs, several businesses. But it's so important to have something to keep you going and have a backup plan. I am the queen of telling people have a backup plan about things. Cover your behind. But I'm also the person who's going to tell you you can do it. This is not impossible. This is not out of your reach. You can do this. Do little things. Evaluate or negotiate your cable package or your internet package. We cut cable. We have an antenna outside our window. I'm lucky I live in a city where I have pretty clear view of things. So it works great for us. We actually get more channels on our TV than my stepdad does on his cable. Contact your utility company for options. Reduce your gas usage by planning your errands. This is something my father used to do. He literally would have all the newspapers from Sunday spread out where he wanted to go, and he would map it out so he used the least amount of gas. I'm not quite to that point, but I do limit how much shopping I do, and I don't make multiple trips. Shop around to get the best deal for big ticket items like cars, TVs. These days, I'm going to put cell phones and computers in there. If you qualify for food stamps, use them. My sister, when her husband was in college and she wasn't working, she's a stay-at-home mom. They have 6 kids, and she was embarrassed to go use food stamps, but I kept telling her this is what these social services are there for, is to help folks stay afloat and not go into debt. Call 211. It's a local organization that connects you with nonprofits and organizations who can help you with these kinds of things. If you're struggling with rent, if you're struggling with utilities, if you need help with transportation, they can help you. Some companies, and I think it was Oprah who did a big thing on this for a while, talking about call and ask. Talk to your TV and internet. Insurance is another one. Call around. See if people can drop your rates. Credit card providers. See if you can get a lower interest rate. It never hurts to ask. The worst they can say is no, right? But the best thing they can say is, yeah, we'll drop that percentage in order to keep you. A lot of credit card companies have struggled keeping people, and they are willing to drop interest rates in order to keep you with them. Saving money is kind of easy when you look for discounts. I love being an AARP member. When I turned 50, got my AARP card. I am a AAA member, and those things give me discounts. My father-in-law is a former member of the military, so he asks for a military discount pretty much everywhere he goes. During certain times of the month or day, one of the other things that we realized we spent way too much money on when my husband was going back to school was eating out. So we became the king and queen of happy hours in Tacoma. I can tell you where a lot of them are. We still do that today because you get the same food, might be a smaller portion, which is good for our waistlines anyways, right? But you're paying a lot less. Wait for sales. There are, if you go online to something like Consumer Reports or something like that, they will tell you when the best time of year is to go buy things. And don't be afraid to use coupons and coupon apps. I've talked to some folks in some other communities that use the apps on their phones that give them money for when they go shopping. It's been very helpful for them. I forget to use them most of the time. The only one I remember to use on a regular basis is the Whole Foods one, because they remind you at the checkout, do you have your coupon? The other thing is keeping good credit, because we can spend too much money paying higher interest rates, paying more for our insurance, things like that if we don't have a good credit score. My husband and I are the nerds who have competitions about who has the highest credit score. I'm getting beat right now because we used part of our refi to pay off his credit cards, not mine. But it's important that you look at how you can keep that credit score up. Pay your bills on time. Pay your balance off as often as you can. Don't charge more than 20 to 30% of the total limit on that card, because that will start to hit your credit. Debt adds up really fast, right? And 14% APR is actually low these days. I think a lot of them are honestly in the 18 to 26 range these days. That's a lot of money to pay just for the pleasure of using the credit card if you keep a balance. It's a lot better to pay it off. If you have, so this is an example where there's, you start with a balance of $493. You're making the minimum payment. If you don't spend anything else on that credit card and you only make the minimum payment, it's going to take you 43 months to pay it off, and you're going to pay $136 in interest on a $490 balance. There's a couple of these sites out there. I can always remember bankrate.com. I can't remember the other one. There's a few of them out there where you can go do a calculation of, here's what my balance is, here's the interest rate, here's what I will pay every month, and they'll tell you how long is it going to take you to pay it off and how much interest you're going to pay. It's a real eye-opener, let me tell you. If you find yourself in over your head with credit, work on it. Contact your creditor, see if you can get a lower interest rate. Work with a certified credit counselor. See if they can get you on a repayment plan that will help you get out of debt and help you establish that budget and have those SMART goals in that plan so you can get out of debt. There are rules for debt collectors, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. So if they are calling you at midnight, or if they are calling you 25 times a day for a payment, you need to contact the AG's office and or us, depending on who the owner of that credit card is, and make them stop, because that's not right. We talked a little bit about shopping around, paying off the debt. When you go to pay off debt, I tell people to pay off the one you pay the most interest on, because you can have one that has a lower interest rate that you're paying more interest on when you have a big balance. When you pay one off, put the money you were paying on that onto whatever else you're making payments on, whether it's a car loan, a home loan, put it back into that or put it into savings. And shop around for the best rate on savings, which right now is pretty pathetic, I will give you that. But do shop around. My nephew, actually, I found out, just took a financial education course in his high school last month. And as a result, decided to find better savings rate and got the entire family to change their financial institution to a place that paid them interest on their checking and their savings and a higher interest rate than they had before. So again, be open to listening to other folks. When it comes to investments, I tell people talk to a financial advisor or financial planner. Licensed professionals verify their license, and picking them is like picking a doctor or a dentist. You need to feel comfortable with them, you need to feel confident in them, and you want to do some research and make sure they don't have actions taken against them. Be kind to yourself in this process. It's like anything else, we can slip up. You know, like I said, we had paid off our credit cards and we're back into the credit card debt again. That's my goal this year, is to pay it off. Be wary of companies that say they're going to fix your credit or repair your credit. A lot of these companies, what they do is they attach your name to somebody else's social security number, or they charge you a bunch of money for the equivalent of what works out to be like a bankruptcy with a credit card company. Remember when I said done all the things you're not supposed to do? I worked with a company. They said, don't talk to your credit card company, deal with us directly. I paid them a monthly amount and they were supposed to take care of it. What happened was they negotiated with a credit company to pay a lesser amount. And then I was not allowed to use my credit cards anymore. And I lost my credit card accounts. And when I called the company and called the credit card company and said, hey, I'd like to go back to working with you, they said, no, we view this the same as having filed for bankruptcy. We can't work with you anymore. So I had to go through this with the company, finish paying off, and it destroyed my credit for about 4 years. So be very careful who you work with, do your research. Honestly, you can do all of this on your own. Any of the companies and organizations that are out there, you can do this on your own. You may need help. That's why I say go to a certified professional counselor. No one can erase accurate or current negative information. And please don't invent a new ID because the federal government comes after you. Be wary of fraud. This is another way that people are they're losing money. Right? You can't save it if you're losing it. And I've seen so many people have their identity stolen. Washington, there was a story in the News Tribune yesterday or Wednesday, anyways, this week, that said Washington State is among the top targets most vulnerable for identity theft. Part of that was due to the unemployment data breach. But we've had several data breaches in our state. We had, Michael's, Blue Cross Blue Shield, the unemployment data breach. There's data breaches all the time. But there's a lot of identity theft as well. My husband's card got taken. It was skimmed at a ATM point of sale, and they tested it for $1. And then the next time, because he didn't pay attention to that, they spent $600 at crypto.com. And it took us 3 weeks to get it back, even though we work with a really reliable financial institution and they understood this wasn't him. They had to do the investigation. So for 3 weeks, he did not have access to that $600, which was a lot of money. I mean, maybe that's not a lot of money for a lot of people, but to us, that was a lot of money. Be stingy with your social media information. Make sure that you're using a secure mail, because especially for anything where you're mailing money or checks or anything like that, or getting anything in the mail. Sign up for alerts, register with the do not call list. Optoutprescreen.com is a great place to go. Eliminate those credit card offers, those blank credit card things that come to you in the mail. When I lived in Lakewood, our mail got stolen twice a month. It just happened. And having these things come in the mail was pretty terrifying. I'd had a friend have his identity stolen that way. You can contact, these only work with companies you do not have an existing relationship with. To remove those, you have to call those companies. So I had to call the credit card companies that I had existing credit cards with and tell them, please don't send me any of these via the snail mail. You can send them to me in email. Please don't send them in snail mail. You can learn more about scams at DFI. You can also learn more at FTC. Contemplate freezing your credit. This is a great way to keep things safe and secure. Nothing is 100%. That's why the person who ran that big identity theft protection company no longer promotes his own social security number on television, because nothing is 100%. But these are great things that you can do. It is free to do in the state of Washington. You go to the credit bureau, you start at annualcreditreport.com, go to the 3 credit bureaus and freeze your accounts. No one can check your credit or open new lines of credit in your name. This does mean if you go to open a line of credit, you need to thaw it. There's a process and a password. It's actually pretty easy. You set up a window for when those people can check it. So when we when we refinanced our home, we asked the mortgage operator, hey, when are you going to go check this? I need to make sure I have the window open for that time, but not a whole lot more time. Same thing when I bought my car last year, and it worked great. And protect it. So to receive the benefit of the protections from credit cards of you're only liable for identity theft things, charges up to $50 that you didn't make, you need to sign it. And I come from a generation where we used to sign the back, please see identification. Well, you have to sign it with your signature because they're supposed to be checking that. They don't always, but they're supposed to be checking it. So what I do now is I sign that in black Sharpie, sign the name, and then put a piece of tape over it. And then in red Sharpie, I write, please see ID on top of that, put another piece of tape. It provides just enough of an eye catch that most people will go, oh, I'm supposed to look at your ID. So it's an extra bonus bit of protection. I'm covered by the credit card companies, but that red also pops out. And then also use RFID sleeve protectors like we have here. We provide them if you email me at communicationdir@dfi.wa.gov. We can provide those to you. Email me, tell me where I need to mail them to, and we can provide them. I can also ship a box to the library if you like, and you can have them on hand. Do we have any questions?
Lynn, this is fantastic. And yes, I will send you our address here in South Hill so that you can send us a box of those.
Awesome.
That would be fantastic to offer folks.
Cool.
There's so much like information. So this is really great. And I'm glad this is going to be on YouTube and people can take their time and pause and check things out. We are librarians, so I do have to ask, do you have a favorite book resource that you used or consulted or went back to? I'm curious.
Budgeting,
or any kind of financial.
Yeah, for budgeting, it would be the Automatic Millionaire, because it really talked about making it an automatic thing, so you didn't have to think about it. It's that set it and forget it kind of motto, right? And I've gotten to all except for the, well, I am investing automatically because I have set it. I'm just not at the level where I should be if I want to retire before I'm 100, right? I keep thinking about retiring in the next 10 years, and it's not going to happen. But because I started late. But yeah, that one. And then for investing, it was a book written, it's called A Purse of Your Own. And it was specifically for women, talking about how society tells us we aren't as good at this as men are, but statistics show we're better at it than men are because we think about it and we do our research and we're less emotional about it. It's we hate losing money. So it was a great book, and it talks about investing for, what are your goals? You know, do you want to invest in the environment? Okay, there are environmental companies you can invest in. Do you want to invest in kids? There's children's companies you can invest in. Do you want to invest in just to grow money? Well, look at what's moving the fastest. So yeah, that was a really helpful book.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. And then we have a ton of resources on our website, the investor protection booklets. We have a ton of, we link off to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's another great resource. The CFPB has these spiral bound notebooks that are budgeters. They have actual budget worksheets in them and walkthrough. Those are some great ones too. I'll go find the link and send that to you.
Okay, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. The other thing I was thinking, you know, because it is a really struggle to sort of stay on the straight and narrow, and like you mentioned with your story about dieting, a lot of times they say that having a community can, for some people, that's going to make a big difference. Do you know of any like communities for budgeting for like, or people in their financial lives? Is that something that?
So there are community organizations, there are social media groups that you can join where everybody's sort of like-minded and talking about it. There are like book reading groups where they've focused on money. There are investment clubs. There are, I see them in high schools a lot. For adults, it's really about becoming more comfortable talking about money first, right? Because there's this huge stigma around talking about money. Most parents would rather talk about sex with their kids than they would money. It's the weirdest thing to me. But when I think about it, my parents were the same way. They didn't, all they ever told me was save your money. It was, and I was the why child. I needed to know why and how, otherwise it wasn't going to happen. So it didn't happen for me. But yeah, I knew way more than I wanted to about sex than I did about money. And I asked her about it. She goes, well, we told you to save your money. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot more to it than that. You know, that's the number one thing, is learning to be comfortable talking about money. Start with the people in your household. If you're a parent, talk to your kids, because kids are really smart. My mom's motto of "they're short, not stupid" is, it's so accurate. I had a neighbor who lost her job, was a single mom, and her 9-year-old was like, well, Mom, what if we did this? Well, Mom, what if we did that? And they were great ideas. They ended up implementing them. Cut cable. We're not going to eat pizza out. We're going to do, but it also gave them some investment in what happened in the family. And when she got her new job, part of the investment was we're going to budget for toys or going to, I guess it was Chuck E. Cheese at the time, making kids a part of that and making talking about money a normal aspect of your day is so important. Like I said, my husband and I compete about credit scores. Kicking my butt right now. It's not happy.
That's funny. Oh, I love all this advice. It intersects in so many different ways, from parenting, from social groups and building communities. Wow, the wheels are turning, because of course we could have a group here at the library that met. I love that idea.
Yeah, you could go get books from money gurus. And I'm a jerk. I have my favorite. I love Jean Chatzky. Jean Chatzky. She's on one of the morning shows. She's really smart, but she's really nice. She's not going to be mean to you like some of the others are. And I have problems with one of the other person's take on credit. Our society runs on credit. You need to have credit. Saying I will never have credit is just not a reality. You're going to have a horrible credit score, which is going to drive up your insurance rates, which is going to make you pay more for things like even your cell phone plans, right? And make it harder for you to buy a home. I don't know too many people who can plop down $500,000 for a home, or even 20% these days.
Right.
So that kind of cash just doesn't flow in my world.
Yeah, that's a very small percentage of people.
Yeah.
Well, and then
the other thing I want to say is, like, destigmatize talking about money and being open and honest about it and saying, I need help. There are financial counselors in every community who want to help and it doesn't usually take a lot of time. And in most cases, it's free. So yeah, reach out.
Yeah,
you don't have to suffer alone.
Right. I love all those links you shared. Again, people can pause and they can get the link.
Yeah.
Cool. Julie, did you have anything? Cool. Well, I think I am going to wrap up the recording. Is there anything else you wanted to share, Lyn?
I think we've covered pretty much everything. Just, everything we have is on our DFI website, dfi.law.gov. Go down and click on that financial education button. There's so many different opportunities. You can go to the A to Z. There's an all-in-one handout. There's tons of publications you can order. There's links to our partners. We try to make it a one-stop shopping. And if you find something that is, that is not product promoting, that you think is a good resource, let us know. We're always open to adding new resources. So.
Well, it's good to know. Thank you. Well, looking forward to next week, credit and debt. We're going to dive in. That is going to be so much fun. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Awesome.
See you next week.
Thank you so much.